Hello everyone, and welcome to the Groundplan and Ascora integration webinar. My name is Craig, I work at Groundplan as a trade expert, and over the next 15 minutes I'll be showing you through how to use Groundplan and Ascora together. At the end, I will then push that estimate through for a quote over in Ascora. I will then hand the reins over to Courtney from Ascora, who will then access that quote and show you how to manage the quote and the job from there. After this, we'll have time for any questions that you have. And you can just pop them into the chat and we will answer them all for you at the end. Okay, Groundplan. Groundplan is a counting and measuring tool used by all trades who count and measure off plans. We have a full PDF editor, which means we also take care of design and construct, and for sub-trades such as electrical, HVAC and plumbing, as well as built, digital set-out measurements and much more. Today we're going to focus on Takeoff. So to start with, I've already created a project over in Groundplan. I've created all of my stages for the different items that I'm going to be counting and measuring. And we're just going to start off by counting a little bit of power and data. So to start with, I'm just going to create a count like so. And as you can see, I've got access to my Ascora inventory supply, which are the catalogs. Inventory kits, which just means that you've already created a kit over in Ascora with all the materials and the labor that go into any of your items. And we've also got Groundplan one-off items, which I'll show you a little bit about later on. So we're going to start with an inventory kit. I'm simply going to look up the item that I want to count, which is a GPO in this instance. And then from here, I'm just going to head down and pick the appropriate inventory kit like so. I just choose a symbol and a color to represent it on the plan, and then I just go ahead and I hit create. So I'm going to wheel in nice and close, and I'm just going to start counting all of those GPOs as you can see here. So super simple stuff. I'll just make my way through and just begin with all of those counts. So now I'm finished with those double GPOs. It's time to start counting the double data outlets. So I'm just going to, again, just create that count, look up my inventory kit from Ascora, click on it. Now I like to just swap the color out just so that I can see the difference on the plan. And then again, super simple stuff. We're just going to make our way through and count all of those double data outlets like so. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start counting the lighting. This time we're going to use Count Assist. So Count Assist is an add-on product that we here at Groundplan have worked on for the past few years, and it's mainly used by companies that count on plans every day. So I'm going to start off by clicking on that D1. I'm going to click Count Assist. And as you can see, a little GIF has popped up just showing how to make the measurement. And then we've just got a little bit of a process of where we go through, we search, we review that search, and then we apply the count. So I'm just going to go straight ahead and I'm going to look for one of my D1 lights. I click on it, hover over it, watch it turn blue, and then I click on it again. Excellent. So it's picked up the first 37 or the 37 that are on this page. So now I'm just going to highlight those results and I'm just going to wheel out and just make sure that I've grabbed all of those that are on the plan like so. As you can see, we've got a bit of a whiteout in the background just so that we can take out a bit of that noise, and you can adjust that if you need to up the top here like so. So I'm happy that I've found all the D1 lights. I'm going to apply that count and then I'm going to move on to my D2. So I head in, wheel in, grab that D2 like so. Now what's happened here is that there's other lines of render or there's other symbols that it's picked up on the plan because we can see these lines here. So generally what happens is we can just turn them all off, and as I hover over each element that Count Assist has picked up, you'll see that they'll turn blue until I can isolate the symbol. I click on it and then I press save like so, and it's found those 28. So now I'm going to highlight those results, make sure that I've grabbed all of the correct D2s, and then I'm just going to apply that count. And last but not least, we'll just go ahead and we'll grab the T1s like so, hovering over, and then I'm going to click on those like so. It's found the 108. Again, just making sure that I've grabbed all the correct symbols and I apply that count. Excellent. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to have a look at a bit of a mains run. So I have a transformer here and a main switchboard, and I'm just going to click on that mains like so. Now what's happened here is I haven't set a scale, so Groundplan is telling me that. So I just head over, I set the scale to 1 to 100 in this case at A1, and then I just set the scale like so. You can also manually measure that scale if you need to. Now all I'm going to do is I'm simply going to click to start, double click to finish, and we've just gone through and we can see that we have measured 32.27 meters for that mains run. Now, for my drainage plan for my plumbing side of things, what I've done is I've actually gone through and I've accessed inventory kits from Ascora for these. So again, that just means that all of the materials that go into these counts and measurements, we're going to be able to view those once we push it across into Ascora. So I'm going to click on my DWV. I'm going to wheel in nice and close, click to start, click to change directions as many times as I need to, like so, and I just make my way around that run, clicking to change directions each time, and then once I'm finished, I'm just going to double click to finish that. Now, if I want to go through and grab other measurements at the same time, I can just simply jump in, clicking to start, and double clicking to finish, like so, until I've gone through and just captured all of the different lengths that we need to do on an installation. And of course, I can't forget to go through and double click, and do the actual main run in there, I should say. So now it's time to count the downpipes. Again, I have already used my inventory kits from Ascora for these. So all of the materials that go into installing these are going to be present once we push this across. Now, I do talk to a lot of plumbers who tend to work out what all the materials are for a job. And then from there, they just go, okay, that aspect of the job is going to take 2 days. This is going to take 3 days. This is going to take 4 days, and so on and so forth. So you can actually just access your inventory supplies, which are your catalogs from Ascora. And so just to give a quick example, I'm just going to create a count, jump in and get to my inventory kit, and I'm just going to look here for a junction. So excellent, I've found the correct item. I just choose a symbol to represent it on the plan, and then I'm just going to go through and I'm actually just going to pop those where I want all of those junctions to go. Excellent. So lastly, we've just got a stage here for plastering. So this is just to sort of show you some of the functionality of the length tool and the area tool. So we're going to start off with wet plastering. Again, these are inventory kits that we've already set up over in Ascora, so it's going to quantify the gyprock or the villa and compound and anything else that you've got stored in that kit. So I'm just going to use Groundplan to do the measuring. I click on my wet plastering. Up the top in the editing banner, we can swap from freeform to square. So what that means is I can wheel in nice and close. I can just jump in, and I'm just going to go through and just capture all of the rooms that are square, like so. And super simple stuff. We'll just make our way through like that. And I'm just going to clicking to start and clicking to finish. For the other areas that aren't quite square, I'm just going to swap back to freeform. And that just means that I can go through and just measure all of those little differences as we make our way around like so. And then I click at the end to finish those runs. So I've grabbed all of my walls. I'm going to go to my standard plastering now. And again, I'm just going to make my way through, clicking to start, clicking to change directions as many times as I need to, until I've gone through and captured all of those walls. And I know that I've got a really accurate read. Now for my ceilings, so this is used by concreters and roofers and obviously painters and plasterers. You can go through just super quick for roofers and add a pitch value when you're trying to measure the pitch of a roof on a 2D plan. And we are happy to show you how that works if you come through to us. Okay, so I'm going to click on that ceilings. Again, I'm just going to make my way through just like I did with the length tool. I've got the choice between freedom and square, so I'm just going to go through like so. And then I'm just going to swap that out for square like so, and I'm going to click over like so. And now we've completed the takeoff side of things with all of our counting and measuring like so. So we're just going to have a quick look at the worksheet. Now this is just where we can go through just to help with our estimating. And there's a few different ways that we can do that. And to start with, we're going to have a look at power and data. So these are inventory kits from Ascora. So we may not need to touch these because we've already got all of the materials and the labor that are associated with the installation of the GPO and the double data outlet. And so once we push those across into Ascora, we're going to be able to see all of those materials and then adjust them, as Courtney will show you shortly. So for the lighting, potentially commercial lighting is a lot different in terms of that there might be specific lights from a specific wholesaler and so on and so forth. And so we've just got a few different ways that we can have a look at these, have a look at the situation. So number one, we've gone through and counted them, and we may not even know how we're going to estimate them. So I've just got a couple of different examples in here of what we've done with this. So I have counted these lights, I have sent the quantities off to the wholesaler, we have got the prices back. Now I jump into that D1 light. As you can see, what I've done is I've added a price for the light itself. And then I've also gone through and added a markup, so 20% on top of those for the business. And then I've simply added a inventory kit, which is going to allow for all of the cabling, the 413, and all the materials that go into actually installing that light. So that is a really common way that people look at items. So we've counted it, we've priced up the fitting itself, and then we've got an inventory kit which takes care of all of the materials and the labor to go into installing that. Okay, I've done the same thing for the D2 light. For the T1, I should say, what I've done here is I've actually used Groundplan and inventory supplies from Ascora because I don't have a kit, or I want to do a charge up, or I just want to quantify the materials. So we have an Excel type formula system, and I have accessed all of these items from my inventory supplies over in Ascora. Now, please don't worry if you do decide to go ahead for a trial. We have trade assistants that are ready to teach you how to do all of this stuff. And then we also offer free training as well to make sure that you're up and running. But it just means manually I've gone in, I've priced up that T1 light, and then I've just gone through and I've allowed for all of the materials manually and a little bit of labor as well. Okay. For the mains, I've just done the same thing where I've measured that, but I've also gone through and just used my inventory supplies, and I've gone through and just allowed for the correct amount of conduits. I have the cable in there with all conductors and also any loops in and out of the transformer and the main switchboard, cubic meters of bedding sand, and all of the components that go into running that mains, including the labor. Okay. Now, for my drainage, as I said before, I've actually used an inventory kit here for the first two. So when that goes across and we push that across into Ascora, we're going to see all of the information, the materials and the labor that go into those. And then naturally, we also added a few junctions straight from our inventory supply. Now, last but not least, the plastering. Now, this is just a quick example that if you've set your inventory kits as a square meter rate, naturally we've actually gone through and measured that in meters. So it may be just a case that we just want to go into our formula and we just want to add the height of that wall so that we are measuring in square meters essentially, and that the inventory kits are going to have the correct amounts and all those sorts of things. So once we're finished with our counting and measuring, and we've gone into the worksheet and we've taken care of the estimating, we're now going to go and push this across over into Ascora for a quote. So I click on the Ascora button like so, and from here I'm just simply going to click on push to a new quote. If it's a new customer that you don't have stored over in Ascora or a contract or something like that, we just push this button here and we just enter all of the details of that new customer. If we do have them stored, which I do here, I'm just going to basically pop their name in there like so, find that correct person. I can add a name, which I'm just going to call Courtney. And then from here, we simply hit create. So that job has now been created over in Ascora, and essentially, numbers-wise, it's just taken the next cab off the rank from Ascora. I click on that so that I can go in and have a look at that like so. And as you can see, here are all of our stages, which have turned into sections. And this is the part where I hand over to Courtney from Ascora.
Okay, thanks, Craig. As you can see, the Groundplan integration is phenomenal, allowing to smash out an accurate estimate in no time. That's what Ascora and Groundplan is all about. It's about leveraging that power of software for your business. For anyone who doesn't know, Ascora is a complete end-to-end job management system. So we handle everything through from inquiries, quotes, jobs, invoicing, and supplier bills. Now that all the estimation data is across in Ascora, we can see here's the quote that Craig pushed across earlier. I can drill into that quote and start to embellish upon those quote details. So I can go through and start to add into the description. I've got all the rich text formatting coming through here. And if I go down, here's all the sections that's got pushed across. And that's leveraging all the kits or pre-built bill of materials that we've got in Ascora, inventory items, creating new write-ins as needed. And we can start to swap those out from here too. Say there was an extra section that we wanted to add onto the quote. We can go through and add a standard section or a new section to give it a different name. In this case, I'm going to go add on some audio visual. And I'm going to drill into that particular section and just go and add a few extra items onto here. So this part really depends on what we have set up in our catalog. I'm going to go through and add on some extra speakers as part of this. And I can make things in here optional as well. So it could be that I'm presenting to the client a few different options they have, and I can go through and add them all to the quote, make things optional, to really give them some choice. Going back up to the main quote, I can start to add things like inclusions, exclusions, all level of detail that I want to have as part of that quotation. And you can build up these lists behind the scenes and break them up. So it's not just one big, massive list of inclusions. You can separate it into logical groups just to make it easier to find. And it's all about being able to quote quickly and effectively with minimal time and effort going through. And I can adjust these pre-built ones that I have, if needed. And as well, like with the templates, if there's particular inclusions or exclusions that are always there in certain cases, I can always have those built into my actual document templates. So there's no need to keep adding the same things again and again. I wouldn't need to. And about the quotes in the Ascora, it's all about building up a quote that is there to sell to that customer. Pricing, is an important part, but it's the whole wrapper to that. And that's where you can have many different quote templates. I'm going to grab a few different quote templates just to show you guys what's possible. And the templating in Ascora is very, very powerful. So effectively, you can have a quote come out of Ascora looking like exactly what you want it to look like. Anything you can do in Word, you can do in the Ascora quote templates. So in this case, I've got it broken up into the various sections. I'm showing things like unit pricing, go through, and I got my AV, new section on the end there. But I can take those quotes, as far as I want to go. So I'm going to choose a bit more of a proposal style quote now to pull that down. And you can see, like in this case, I've got a bit of a cover page going through, welcome letter type elements, fancy footers and things. I've got an overall pricing summary as part of that quotation. Now I can include other details in the quote. So if there's particular brands, products, exactly recommend, that can be part of that proposal document that's generated. Or it could be things even like, about us, recent projects, the different unique points of difference that we're bringing to the table. Scrolling down, I've also got photos for some of the items. So in this case, a few of the items that Craig pushed across to Ascora, or linked to Ascora items, do have photos. If I go through, some don't, but it just gives you options where you can start to display various things. And if I get all the way to the end, this is the extra kind of AV section that I added. And you can see that it's added not just the items and the price for those items. I've got the photos, I've got the descriptions, and I've got more of a sales kind of annotation coming through as well. That's all there. And you can see just how quick that was to actually quote. Then I've got my different inclusions and exclusions. And obviously after that, you'd usually have your T's and C's, all those kind of details. Once we're happy with the quote, it's time to then send that quote off. With Ascora, you can link up any of the different emails directly into Ascora. So with your Office 365, your G Suite, you can link it through. I can select the different contacts I have. So behind the scenes in Ascora, there is like a full CRM that's there that you can link up, have the different contacts, have the sites they work at, give them options to select. You can have many different email templates as well. So if you've got different email templates covering a certain scenario, you can have them preset to that. So again, it's all about having kind of like building up that depth of knowledge that you've got different quote templates, different email templates, all the information there to quickly and professionally quote. And I'm going to go and send that off. And now I could include various attachments. We do have options in Ascora to merge attachments and that kind of thing too, if you don't want to have one big file coming out. I'm going to send that off. You can see the quote then moves to send to client. In that quote email, I don't know if you guys saw it, I did have a link so the customer can view and accept the quote online. And that does come back to me too on this screen and would show me, have they actually viewed the quote? When did they last view the quote? There's also options where you can set up things like follow-ups in Ascora. And again, that's coming back to really leveraging that power of automation and kind of process driving and process control that they get, an email a day after you send the quote. If the quote hasn't been converted to one or lost, they get an SMS the day after that. And it could be an escalation procedure, just depending on the kind of customer we're dealing with. So we can kind of create those different workflows and different scenarios. There's also different areas I can start to manage my quotes. So I was going to quickly just jump in and show you guys the quote pipeline. There is obviously the main quotes list, a quotes register kind of view. And the pipeline kind of lets me build up what is my sales process. So I can easily drag my various cards along. It's tracking what is my pipeline of work now, where is that pipeline up to in my overall sales process. And I can create many different kind of columns or swim lanes going through as I want. And then it's telling me what is that breakup between the various areas. Now, where is all my work? Right now, it's in that first phase. But you'd see it kind of move across, and it's keeping track of how many hours, how many jobs, dollar value of jobs, for the sales guy's perspective, who's the sales guy looking after those, how many days has it been in a certain phase. So this is a different visual way of working with the quotes. I'm just going to jump back to that first quote and say, in this case, the client went ahead. We can convert that quote across to a job. Everything else will map across. So I've got now a quote to job comparison. So I can easily compare hours, dollar values, items, etc. going through. Right now I can see that I've got actual labor costs. I estimated 3,700 there. Currently it's zero. And that's going to come back from the various mobile apps and timesheets. So Ascora has native applications for iOS, iPad, Android that the guys on the road can then check into or add their times to. And that's going to pull back in real time against those actual labor costs. It's also going to show up in our labor breakdown. So we're tracking against the various roles. And these kind of things can be at the parent job level, like I'm looking at now, but I can also drill down into the various areas below and check, how is lighting going in particular. And the profitability and hours and stats are all based on then that lighting section of work. On the overall job or the sections of jobs, I can then go through and start to create my different purchase orders as needed. So I can go through and drill into what are the items that we've got. I can go through and select, and change suppliers if needed. I could bulk order everything. I can order, just a handful of items, whatever's easiest for me or whatever's more applicable. I can change quantities and things too from this screen. And it's pulled through. It's a lot of information there from all the work that Craig had stepped through. I'm going to go and generate. In that case, that's generated a couple of different POs there for me, one for CNW and one for Sonos. And then I can start to receive, obviously send off those particular supplier bills or, POs to the suppliers and receive those supplier bills back. So that's where Ascora can have that complete, end-to-end automation for you, where you can receive the supplier bill. That's going to link back against your PO. And if that supplier bill, say, received was 10 pages, Ascora is going to break those pages up based on the actual invoices you've received. So if one did come through and the first couple of pages of the first invoice, next three with the next invoice, Ascora is going to chop them up. And when you accept those particular invoices, not only is it updating your job costing, it's also pushing those bills across your accounting package. So it pushes across to 0, Mile, and QuickBooks, and it can push across that particular PDF copy of the invoice as well. And what it means too is that kind of cycle, it's obviously saving a massive amount of time. No one's going through and keying in those supplier bills. They can just flow through automatically, picking them up from emails. They can be dropped into Ascora. And it's also meaning that we've got accurate costings and accurate idea of our profitability on that particular job. Through Ascora, you also see a lot of areas, things like RFIs, variations can be created from jobs. We can also handle elements like retentions, if they apply to you guys. And you can also adjust the retention value, not just set, a percentage amount for them. So I'm just going to quickly generate a progress claim just to finish off with that invoicing to the customer. With the progress claims, you can decide how you're going to break up those claims. So it could be that you want to have a full section of everything, or we're not kind of breaking it up into all the different sections we've looked at. Or you can elect to go through and say, I want to break it up based on all those sections. I'm just going to add them all in. If I had extra variations come through, they would also add into this section down the track as well. So that's very, very seamless flow too. I'm going to go through and create my claim. And with the claims, I can go through and specify a percentage amount for any of the claims that I like, or I can specify an actual dollar value. With the claim templates, much like the quote templates in Ascora, you can go to town having any kind of progress claim template you want to have come out, depending on your target market. In this case, I'm just going to download one of the sample ones there. And you can see that it's breaking up my contract value, amounts this claim, claim to date. And as I go through having more claims, things like previous claims, you can split variations off into separate tables, separate pages, elements like that. And behind the scenes, that particular invoice is then pushing across into my accounting package as well. So that way, all the invoicing, bills, payments are all taken care of for me. So today we've kind of shown you how to quickly produce that detailed estimate in Groundplan. We've pushed the quote across to Ascora. We're pulling in all the items and customers and details. And we've followed that end-to-end process going through from quote to job, creating claims. And it's just a taste of what the two systems can offer. And it's all about automating and streamlining what you can achieve in the business. And you can see it's quite quick and easy to work with once you know how all the different pieces fit together. And now Craig and I will be more than happy to answer any queries anyone has this morning. Looks like I've got one there for you, Craig.
Can Groundplan pick up items which are rotated? Okay, I think that you might be talking about count assist. So we can pick up items that have been added in at a 90-degree angle. If they are rotated on anything apart from that, you might just need to make multiple selections. But it's all just based around that. You'd go through when you're checking, and then you can sort of see when you're doing your review, you can see everything that's sort of come up, and then you might just need to make a few multiple selections just to get them all in. Okay, fabrications, structural steel, material Takeoff, suitable. In terms of the Takeoff, yes, look, we have quite a few structural steel companies here at Groundplan, and no doubt at Ascora as well. And lots of different things that people sort of look for. So in terms of, you've got obviously different size steel that are different weights, and a lot of people are sort of looking for that overall tonnage and that sort of stuff. So yes, 100%, like we could do that. And I know through setting up some inventory kits of my own that it's just a case that you'd probably set those up, access those, and use those to count and measure. And obviously we could assist you with that. Okay, in regards to job tracking, Chris Clark, I think that one's for you there, Courtney.
Yeah, so I think so Chris Clark's saying there, in regards to job tracking, if you're doing two separate sections in the same day, do the guys need to log in and out of the sections to track the labour? And the answer to that is that basically they can be in a section of the job and also transition back up to the parent and down to the next section. So they are booking their hours usually against a section of the job, just so that way we're kind of tracking against that section. In the same way, we're kind of splitting up the materials to those sections. But it is quite an easy process. And, the guys don't need to log out of a particular section, if they log into, let's say, section 2, that's going to stop their time against the first section anyway for them.
Okay, awesome. So we've got Adrian here. So when a quote has been issued in Ascora, can new revisions be issued from Ascora, and if needed, update with updated drawings from Groundplan? So I can cover the first part of this, I think. So in Groundplan, we have plan review, which means that you can overlay any revisions that have come through. With the old one, we have basically 2 different colors. So if it's black, that means nothing has changed. If it's red, that means that it's on the old plan, but it's not on the new. And then we've got a blue version. So you can really quickly and clearly see where the changes have been made. Then you can adjust all your counts and measurements. And then after that, we've got what we call a, the name eludes me now, where we basically, you slip the old plan out and you slip the new plan on, and all of those measurements transfer, and then you can actually push that through to an existing quote over in Ascora.
Yeah, no, I think you've covered that one off there, Craig.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay.
That's all good. I think we've got next one down there. We use a timesheet program for payroll. Can we replace it with Ascora? So answer that, yeah, yes, you can basically have, so that the guys are recording their times against the jobs. In Ascora, we do have things like timesheet rules. So it could be, if I'm working before 6 a.m., it's time and a half, or if I work more than 40 hours in the week, it's double time or weekend times. And from that, we hook into the various payroll systems like your miles and zeros, and then it becomes a kind of review process. So that the times are coming through from the guys, those times are pushing back against the job. So it could be maybe an estimator, project manager that's looking at it going, are these times okay? Or someone from accounts jumping in the payroll area where you can check the times as well. Then once you're happy with those, you can basically push all those times across into your different payroll packages. So 100%, it's all about having, you know, the one platform that can run through for your business. I think next one on this, Craig, we've got Andrew Cooley saying, will pricing Groundplan override pricing in Ascora if different?
Yeah, I remember, Andrew. Basically, because we're accessing inventory kits or inventory supply, the pricing will be the same. It's only, I guess, if you were to use a one-off item in Groundplan, but I don't think that would necessarily override anything, because you would be manually putting in that price. And I think that I've seen you do it before, where you can actually adjust the pricing over in Ascora. Is that correct there, Courtney?
Yeah, you can. You can override the pricing if you've got special project pricing on items. Otherwise, Groundplan is basically grabbing the Ascora items, using them. They're coming straight through into that particular quote, kind of running from there. And you can have various things that kind of updating, you know, your supplier price files and pricing in Ascora, and set up different imports to map them through to make that easier for you as well.
Well, this one I don't need to read because it's a question for Ascora from William. Yeah,
so you got there, do the builds need to come through as a section? Can they be structured so the child job is under a layer of power comms as per the usual commercial projects? So in that case, we did have the sections being like lighting, mains, drainage, etc. So the kind of child jobs that we're referring to would be the layers that you would kind of set up there, William. I hope that answers the question. Can you please, question there from Jared, can you please show the fittings that you did in Groundplan, how they appear in Ascora, i.e. light fittings that are not an Ascora kit build? So basically, Jared, they would actually just appear as like a write-in item. So all the details would come through exactly the same. So you'd have, you know, your part numbers, descriptions, etc. Whatever pricing detailed was entered on the Groundplan side gets pushed to us. Then obviously from the Ascora side, we can overwrite those as needed.
Okay, awesome. And Peter and Perry, it looks like they are just asking a very similar question. Will you send out a recording of this webinar? The answer is yes. Everybody that's attended the webinar today will receive an email with links if you wanted to activate trials, and also a copy of the webinar. No, there is no, this is for Perry. Perry, no, there is no additional cost to link Groundplan and Ascora.
Question there from Adrian saying, does Ascora have geofence or location tracking whilst on the clock? Answer to that is yes. So we do track the positions of the devices, and from there we have various rules around how we start to track. So when the guy is saying they're traveling to a particular job, we geofence that job, And when they arrive on site, and you can set the radius for what that geofence is, we basically then check them in. And when they leave that radius, depending on the different timesheet types, it can check them out. And we do have different reports that will show you any discrepancies. So if the guys checked in and they were 10 kilometers away, you can see that come up to discrepancy, and you can see where the job was and where they actually checked in as well. And it also feeds back to things like activity flows. So you can see like what's happening in Ascora. So as the guys say are checking in or out of a job, that's popping up in a little activity feed in the top right. That's also attached to a GPS point, which will pop up on the map, just so you can see where all the guys are now.
Okay, awesome. And we've just got another one here from Andrew. G'day, Andrew. If Groundplan measures something and you need to say quantify, 8.5, can this be rounded up to a whole number? Yes, it can. We use Excel type formula system, and basically, look, I can certainly show you, or we can show you how to do that, but you just write the word seal and put the formula in brackets, and it will round up to the nearest whole number. So if it was, in fact, sort of 8.5, you can have that rounded up to 9. You can also have it that it rounds up or down depending on whether it's, sort of if it was 8.5, it would go to 9. If it was 8.4, it would go to 8. But I don't think that I've spoken to many tradespeople who round down at all. So I think we all want to round up. So yes, 100%.
Yeah. We had one question there too from Natalie, just going, with job check-ins against sections have staff on timesheet only, they require to be scheduled against jobs to check in. Can I book them into a parent, and can they choose on the app the section? So the answer to that is yes. And in terms of the timesheet guys too, it's one of the things, or any of the users in Ascora, it depends on the permissions we give. So it's not that users have to be scheduled against jobs to be able to check into them. As long as they can find the job, they can add their times. So if we do restrict them down to they can only see the jobs they're booked into, that limits what they can view, but they can get booked into a section 100%. So you can drop them into the parent job rather than the section. And if you drop them into the parent, they can then drill into any of the sections and add their time. In the same way, they can go up from a section to the parent, depending. So there's quite a bit of flexibility depending on how we're kind of booking in times as well.
Okay, excellent question for Groundplan. When you measure the mains in Groundplan, did you input the main size? Yes, I did. So what I did, William, was I started off as a one-off item because I knew that I wanted to worry about the materials and all of that a little bit later. Now, if you've got an inventory kit, you could have just chosen that inventory kit. I was just sort of showing that sometimes it's hard to create that kit for every possible scenario, especially for something like main. So what I did was I went in there, I think I chose 95 XLPEs. I multiplied it by 4 for the 4 active conductors, including the neutral. And then I also allowed for enough cable to sort of loop into the transformer and into the main switchboard. And then I went through and did the bedding sand, the warning tape, and basically conduits and all those sorts of things. And I just used the formulas to make sure that I got those really accurate. Again, we offer, we can show you that in a bit of a screen share demo with one of the trade experts, and we've got lots and lots of articles on how to basically do that stuff. So the answer is yes, I did.
Awesome. I think as well too, anyone that hasn't seen Ascora before, you can sign up for a free trial. I've got the links to the sign up for Ascora and Groundplan on the screen now. You can also book straight in with a product specialist for an Ascora demo too, and kind of just book in that time. And one of the product specialists Ascora can kind of run you through a lot of the different detailed scenarios for your business as well. I've got a question there from David. What subscription costs for Ascora? So basically, we have a couple of different tiers. The one we've gone through today kind of fits into the elite tier of things because it has the kind of the project-based areas. With that, we have one cost for unlimited number of office-based users. So it's things like estimators, schedulers, admin staff, etc. is basically $65 a month. And then every standard kind of mobile user or tradesman out on the road is $45. But as someone pointed out, we do have timesheet-based users that are less than that at $15. And there's basically a month-to-month kind of billing, like most kind of software products these days.
Okay, excellent. So we've just got one here. Can you go back to Groundplan from Ascora to check and change measurements? And then can those quantities from Groundplan be added to Ascora progressively? The answer is yes. You can go through and make changes. And then once you've sort of gone through and checked those things, as you sort of said, you can then push that through to an existing quote where you just add that job number that we produced at the end of at the end, basically, and just push it through to that same job number to override what's already been done.
Yeah, and it's one thing that, with the integration there, it's probably took us better part of a year. I think the different kind of back and forth and different layers to different scenarios that can happen. So it's a very, very thorough integration between the two systems.
Okay. If you do multiple scopes on one particular project, would you need to sign the elite pack? I think that's your one there, Courtney.
That's the main difference in the couple of different packages there, Adrian. So with Ascora, we do have the two different tiers of levels, basically the Essentials one and the Elite one. Essentials does cover everything: inquiries, quotes, jobs, inventory, stock control, accounts integration, customer portal, etc. The main difference in Essentials and Elite is Elite gives you the option to do the kind of the multi-stage, multi-section based projects. It also brings in things like job templates that can be handy to kind of have a starting point for some of the jobs, as well as things like forms. So things like, your SWIMs, JSAs, safety forms, as well as some of the supply invoice importing and the kind of equipment asset management are kind of what's on that Elite tier. And it is basically the extra $30 per month overall, plus the $10 per user is the main difference. So it really comes down to, if anything on that tier is going to help, 100%, it's, that's the one to go for.
Great question here from Jared. Can you confirm the examples created in Groundplan, i.e. the mains, that the material items with costs were Ascora inventory items, hence they push across accurately? Any pre-made Groundplan items created prior to Ascora integration becoming available, do they push across in a usable manner, or is it recommended to create new based off Ascora inventory items? Okay, look, I think they would go across in terms of if they have been done manually, but it may be, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Courtney, that it might be better off to sort of create those using inventory items, because then they're associated with the different wholesalers and those sorts of things. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at an inventory item, we could have multiple wholesalers going through for that particular item. In terms of whatever may push across, so if we create a new writing on the Groundplan side, we can edit that on the Ascora side, or we can even convert that into an actual inventory item if we wanted to. So there is an option there to convert write-ins up to inventory items as well. So we're going to get covered that way. And I think prior to the Ascora integration, I think we've covered all that one off there, Craig.
Yeah, no, absolutely perfect. How much is Groundplan for Ascora users? So Groundplan is $99 a month, or if you'd like a discount like most people do, you can go with the $9.90 option per year, which saves you 2 months of subscription each year. Okay, so there's one there from Adrian for you there, Courtney.
Yeah, so does Ascora also do cost plus? So you can go through and bulk update markups and things on the different sections if you wanted to. So I could go through and set all the lighting to be cost plus 20%, 35%, whatever I want it to be, and we're coming through that way. And you can also set default levels for that if you're actually bringing through items. So some guys have default levels to say, I want all items marked up 35%, or otherwise you can set it to be, if it's less than $100, mark it up 200%. If it's less than $300, mark it up 50%, and have some kind of sliding scale if you wanted to.
Okay, cool. Look, I do apologise, everybody. That is all the time that we have today, but we will endeavour to answer all your questions that you've sent through. So on behalf of Groundplan and Ascora, we'd like to thank all of you very much, and I'll leave the last word for Courtney if you'd like.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thanks for everyone coming along today. We've got the different links on the screen now to sign up for the different trials of the systems. So anyone that hasn't hit Ascora, jump on, sign up now. Anyone that hasn't had a chance to play with the Groundplan side of things from Ascora, jump on, sign up for a trial of Groundplan just to see how it can work. And that's one thing with this software, it's really about leveraging that software to take the business to the next level, to free up your time to do the kind of things that manually otherwise would be a huge amount of time, effort, going through. So 100%, jump on, sign up for those trials if you haven't already, guys.
Awesome. Have a great day, everyone, and thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.